Unit 2, Lesson 3, Proportional Graphs. For today's lesson, you'll be able to tell if the graph is proportional and to find the unit rate in a graph. How can we tell if graphs are proportional? Graphs are proportional if it has both of the following characteristics. 1, it's a straight line. 2, the line passes through the origin of the graph, which is 0, 0. Here's a reminder that the x-axis is the horizontal one and the y is the vertical one. And the point where the two axes meet is the origin at 0. Examples and non-examples. So let's look at this first example. This graph is considered proportional. Now why? Let's see. It has to have both of these things. 1, it's a straight line. And 2, it passes through the origin. Okay, so it touches 0. So if a graph has both of these characteristics, then it is proportional. Okay, again, it's straight and it passes through 0. Okay, it has to have both of them. Now let's look at example 2. This is a non-proportional graph. Let's look at why. It has to have both of these things. Number 1, it has to be a straight line, and this is not. So right away we know it is not a proportional graph. All right, it does have the second characteristic where it crosses through 0, 0. So it's okay if it has one, it still is non-proportional. It has to have both. So this is non-proportional because it's a straight line. All right, and the third example is also a non-proportional graph because it does not touch 0, 0, right? It only meets one of the two criteria. It is a straight line, but it does not touch 0. It has to have both. Graphs are proportional if 1, it's a straight line, 2, it passes through the origin. So this is very, very important. You'll have to be able to write this on a test or a quiz. So let's practice and tell whether the graphs are proportional or non-proportional and why. So here's our first graph. Let's think about it. Is it straight? Yes. Does it touch 0, 0? No. So this is a non-proportional graph because the line does not go through 0, 0. So when you're saying why it's not proportional, you want to say which characteristic it does not meet. Let's try example 2. Let's look at this one. Ask yourself the two questions. Say, self, is my line straight? And you would answer yourself, yes, it is. And 2, does it touch 0, 0? Does it touch the origin right here? Yes, it does. If you say yes to both of those questions, it is proportional because both of those things. It's straight and it passes through the origin. Example 3, what do you think? Proportional or non-proportional? That's right, it's not proportional because the line is not straight. Example 4. That's right, it's not proportional. Now this one can be tricky because it is straight, but the line's going the wrong way, right? It has to go through 0, 0. It has to touch this point right at what we would call the origin. Okay. Example 5. Yes, it is proportional because it's straight and it touches the origin 0, 0. Good. So that brings us to our second objective. How do we find the unit rate? So how many words per minute can this person type? So let's look at this graph. We have words and we have minutes. Okay, so how many words per minute? So we have, if we find a point on the line right here, right? And we want to find a point where it is on the corner of these little lines, okay? And if you look at this point and we draw where it's connected, let's see what these numbers mean. This means 8 words per 1 minute. And that is already a unit rate. So the unit rate is 8 words per minute. Okay. If you wanted to think about the y over x, right, let's test it that way. We have the y value, which is 8, over the x value, which is 1, and 8 over 1 equals 8 words per 1 minute. Let's find the unit rate here. We want to know the number of dollars per bag, or y over x. So let's find a point that is on one of the intersections of these lines, okay? It has to be on this line, the point, and it has to be on one of these intersections. So this graph already gives us the points. So let's test them out. Let's try this point. So we'll go up from 4 and over from 16. So let's think about what fraction this would be. This point represents $16 in 4 bags. So our fraction looks like this, and we get 4. So that's our unit rate. It's $4 per bag. Now let's try another point. It should be the same for any of these points because it is a proportional graph and it has a constant rate. So let's try this point. We'll go up from 12 and over from 48, right? So this would be y, which is 48, over 12, which also gives us 4. So again, we have a constant rate, and our unit rate is $4 per bag. Any of these points will also give you a unit rate of 4. 32 over 8, this would be 64 over 16, and this would be 80 over 20. All right, try this one. See if you can figure out the unit rate. Pause it. Okay, so here we don't have any dots, so you have to find which spot has a dot, or where could we put the dots, which point. So we don't want to use a point here because it's not on the corner of these little grid lines. So let's use this point right here. So 2 and 4. Now remember, it's y over x. These are the y's, so y goes on top. 4 divided by 2 is 2. So our unit rate is $2 per hour. So in summary, you want to find a point on the line and use y over x, and that will give you your unit rate. So in this lesson, we learned that a graph is proportional if it is a straight line and if it goes through the origin at 0, 0. And then we also learned how to find the unit rate by finding a point on the line that touches the intersection of the grids and use y over x again.